Welcome back. This is Richard Golson, and we're looking at NetLab 24 using vSphere Lifecycle Manager. And here we are at task 3. In this task, after having uploaded the files, the update files, we're creating a cluster with the vSphere Lifecycle Manager enabled on that cluster. So we configured that cluster to manage multiple ESXi hosts using a single image that we've already imported, and we use that to maintain consistency in the cluster. So all ESXi hosts will have the same image, therefore being very consistent. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we're going to start by creating a new cluster. So let's navigate to hosts and clusters. And I know in NetLab they give you a cluster to begin with, so I went ahead and deleted that cluster out of there, and so now I'll create a new cluster in my data center. So I'll select the data center node and go New Cluster. And I'm going to name this cluster VSICM cluster, VSICM-cluster. And then I want you to note that down here we want to enable management of all the hosts in the cluster using a single image. Note with this option, all the hosts are going to inherit that same image. So anytime we use lifecycle management to update the hosts, they're always going to tap the same image. That'll give us consistency. It also gives us features like hardware compatibility checking and cluster-wide remediation. So that makes it a lot easier to upgrade because then it'll roll through each cluster or each host in the cluster in turn. Now this will require that our hosts already be running ESXi 7.0, and this is going to completely replace baselines. So if you're currently using baselines, baselines can't be used in the cluster anymore. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll go ahead and set that up. Now you'll notice that the ESXi version that's selected is this one here, and I need to change this for purposes of the lab to 7.0 BS, etc. I'll leave this vendor add-on unchecked. Notice there's vendor add-ons, but we'll handle those later. And then the other element that I'd like to take advantage of is DRS. And if I turn that on, we should get an automation level of fully automated migration threshold of 3, which means that during remediation, a host, when it goes into maintenance mode, the cluster is going to invoke DRS and migrate any running VM from that host to another host in the cluster, and then it will run the remediation. And when it's complete, on that host, then it'll move on to the next host and do the same thing. So it'll take that host out of maintenance mode, and then take the next host into maintenance mode. And before doing so, the cluster will run DRS again and migrate the VMs off of that host. So using DRS is super handy for this. So I'll go ahead and hit the OK on that. And I should see a new cluster migrate onto the screen here. And there you can see. And so you can see in Quick Start, we've completed selecting the DRS service and lifecycle management and managing all hosts with one image. And if I click on that link to the image, that'll actually take us over to the updates for hosts and then image here, and you can see the image that will be used. This is the one that will be applied. Also notice there's a check compliance section, but because there are no hosts in this cluster, there's nothing to check. And so when we go to our next task, we'll actually add the hosts to the cluster, and we'll take a look at compliance. So we'll see you then.